Good evening, and welcome to the 20th Annual Macon County Sports Hall of Fame Induction Banquet. We're pleased to have everyone here tonight to help us honor these very well-deserving athletes and induct them into the Macon County Sports Hall of Fame. If you haven't received a souvenir program, they're available over here at the table where you came in. And also, we are giving away a 20th year commemorative pin. So if you haven't received one of those, please pick one up at some point during the banquet, and especially before you leave. Of course, last year we had scheduled to induct these 5 ladies and gentlemen into the Macon County Sports Hall of Fame, but with the COVID pandemic, we felt like that it was the best interest of everyone if we postponed that for a year. So we are very pleased to be able to present this tonight and induct these ladies and gentlemen. So at this time, I will offer an invocation and then we will have our meal. So if everyone would please bow. Heavenly Father, we are thankful for this day and our many blessings. We're thankful for the opportunity to gather here to honor these ladies and gentlemen who are very well deserving to be inducted into the Macon County Sports Hall of Fame. Lord, we pray that you would be with each and one of us tonight, and as we travel back home, please be with us and keep us safe. We want to bless those who prepared this food, and this food to our nourishment to our bodies and our bodies to thy service. These favors and blessings we ask in Christ's name. Amen. All right, Miss Linda's Cakes and Catering have prepared and are serving our meal tonight. So we will begin with the head table. We'll start here and here, work their way around, and then we'll start with the tables over here and go back each row. So if you all will begin, we will do our meal, and then we will have the induction ceremony after the meal. Thank you. We are now ready to start our induction ceremony. I will kind of go over the format of this induction ceremony for tonight. We have a short 2-minute or so DVD clip of each inductee. I will play it, and then after that I will introduce the person who is going to introduce the inductees. Then the inductees will come up for their plaque and pin, and then they will say a little bit to the audience. So at this time, I will start the DVD of our first inductee tonight, who is Jamie Fitzpatrick.
Jamie Fitzpatrick is one of this year's Macon County Sports Hall of Fame inductees. Jamie played football at MCHS all 4 years of high school, from 1993 to 1996. He was named the Region 5 Class 3A Defensive Player of the Year his senior year, and was also named All-Mid-State the same season. Jamie was named the team's Defensive Co-Most Valuable Player his sophomore year, and won the Coaches Award his junior season. Jamie played on 1 playoff team. Jamie made the honorable mention list on the All-State teams in both his junior and senior seasons. Jamie also played baseball during his high school career and was a member of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes his last 2 years of high school. On the academic side, Jamie also stood out. He graduated 7th in his class. He was a member of the Beta Club, Student Council, Spanish, Science, and Math clubs. He also served as class president his freshman and senior years, and was named president of the Interact Club his last year of high school. Following graduation, Jamie walked on at Tennessee Tech and played football in Cookeville as a Golden Eagle. He graduated from TTU with a civil engineering degree. A lifelong Notre Dame fan, Jamie and his family met legendary Irish coach Lou Holtz when Jamie and his younger brother Corey were much younger. Today, Jamie is married to Angela. They have 2 handsome boys, Jake and Jonathan. Jamie works for the Tennessee Department of Transportation as an assistant director of construction. He and his family now make Mount Juliet home. Jamie Fitzpatrick, a 2020 inductee in the Macon County Sports Hall of Fame.
And at this time, I would bring Jamie's football coach, Coach John Offutt, to the stand to introduce Jamie.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say this is quite an honor for me. It's probably one of the greatest honors I've ever had bestowed on me to introduce Jamie tonight. In January 1993, I got introduced to the class of 96. They were freshmen, second semester freshmen. They all walked in, they looked around, they said, what in the world have we got ourselves into here? We went and we started working, and it was definitely a work in progress at the time. But one of the things that made the job a lot easier, and one of the things that I can tell you, what made Jamie a good above average football player was he had 3 other guys around him other than me. You had Greg Ippolito, you had Stacy Pearson, and then you had the late Mark Shrum. And Mark Shrum was the man that made him a linebacker. And Jamie will tell you that today. I used to always enjoy seeing Jamie. We'd have team meetings and everything, and he was one of the captains. And if he didn't really understand something, he'd give you that little look. And he'd say, now, Coach Offutt? And when I could see him doing that, I could see his mother saying the same thing to me, because she used to ask some questions about things that I were doing. His dad couldn't beat him. One of the greatest guys you ever want to be around. Little brother, he was great also. Just a fine young man. But guys, there's more to Jamie Fitzpatrick than just being a good high school football player. He's a fine young man. And I was very, very proud to had coached him. And I'd like to introduce Jamie Fitzpatrick.
Is this one on? Thank you for that, Coach. It's always good to be back in Macon County. Good to be here tonight. I'd just like to start off by thanking the Hall of Fame committee for bestowing this honor upon me. Very grateful to you all. Would like to thank Coach Offutt for coming in tonight and introducing me to the Hall of Fame for my Hall of Fame induction. Like Coach Offutt said, Coach Offutt came in the winter of 1993. It was my freshman year. You know, at that time, Coach Offutt had come from Murfreesboro, Oakland, and I think they had probably just come off of a state championship season. He came to Macon County. Macon County was just coming off of a 1-win season. That one win was against Greenbrier. It was 3-2. You know, I might ask who the pitcher was. But we won one game, so I'm sure Coach Offutt was probably the one saying, what have I gotten myself into? But as soon as he came in, we set to work. We set goals for ourselves. Our goal was to make the state playoffs. At that time, Macon County had gone about 20 years and not sent a team to the state playoffs. So we said, that is our goal. That is what we're going to work toward. My sophomore year, which would have been Coach Offutt's first year as head coach, I think we might have won 2 games. Junior year, three games. After that, I think it might have won 4. It was our senior year. I'll never forget it. You know, we started the season 0-6. Lost several really close games, but we were playing Salina at home, and you know, we had our team meeting with the coaches, and I told Coach Offutt, Coach Schrum, I said, you know, if you guys could just leave, I'd like to address the team. And you know, they walked out, and it was just us. And I said, guys, I said, you know, this is our last home game. This is our last home game at Macon County. I said, I want to go out a winner. I said, you know, I want to go out a winner on my home field, and we did. We went out and we won that game. We finished up. We won our last 4 games. Made it to the first round of the playoffs. Went and played Giles County. Got beat. Finished the season 4-7. You know, some might not consider that a success. You know, we were all tickled to death. You know, we had started something. You know, we had gotten the ball rolling, and we felt like, you know, that would be something for future teams to build off of. We had a great senior class. We were loaded with seniors. We had about 13 seniors. Pat Keene, Casey Oldham, Mike Green, Nick Green, Frank McCall, all guys that you know, we practiced together every day. You know, we weren't the most athletic team, but we prided ourselves on being tough, on being gritty. We said when we step on the field that nobody is going to be tougher than we are. We had the Mighty Mites, which was Jason Hudson, Jared Dillahay, and Clint Mullen. Those guys played in our secondary. You know, they pound for pound the toughest guys probably on the team. You know, they were like 10 pounds of dynamite in a 5-pound sack. You know, they just waited for people to come across the middle so that they could take their head off. And it was fun to be a part of that team. It was fun to be a part of that. You know, so I want to say, so I guess now's when I want to start to say my thank yous. You know, I had some good coaches. Coach Offutt, Coach Schrum, Coach Greg White, Coach Eppolito, you know, all those guys were coaches. Incredibly thankful for those guys. Even after I graduated high school and was playing at Tennessee Tech, you know, I would come back and I would go work out at Coach Schrum's gym. And he let me do it free of charge, and he would always talk to me. He played at Tech too. You know, I was always incredibly thankful for him letting me do that. You know, I want to thank my mom and dad. You know, I was blessed with very good parents. You know, some of the best parents that a kid could have. My dad was actually my first coach. Started coaching me in T-ball, coached me all the way up through Little League. Never had a winning season, by the way. Never had a winning season. So I remember telling my mom one time, I'm tired of losing, and my mom said, "Now, Jamie, losing builds character." I said, "Mom, I've got all the character I need. You know, I've got all the character. I'd just like to win now." Just a few teachers that I'd like to thank too. I know there are some here tonight. My mom and Miss Debbie Murray, my English teachers. English was a breeze after I had them in school. My dad, who showed me my seat the very first day of Algebra 1. He said, "This is your seat right here in the front row, center. Your buddies can go sit back there. You're going to sit in the front." Coach Gaddis, I have a love of history to this day from sitting in Coach Gaddis's classes. And I am a civil engineer. I will say, without a doubt, 100%, that I could not have done that without Keith Anderson. I spent every Saturday and Sunday up here in Keith Anderson's classroom while I was at Tech, studying to get a civil engineering degree, working on calculus, working on differential equations, physics. I mean, you name it. Would not be in the position I am today without them. You know, whenever I'm facing challenges, I always look back on some of the things that my coaches said, or some of the posters that were up on the field house wall. You know, some of those might be, you know, if it's to be, it's up to me. That's one I remember. Or when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Or where you can skin a cat more than once. Coach Offutt, remember that one? That was one that Coach Offutt said. I remember it to this day. And you know, folks, I'm here to tell you, those sayings got me through a lot of two-a-days in August when it was hot, when you didn't really want to be there. And I've always said, you know, if you can make it through two-a-day practices in August, the rest of life is easy. There's nothing else that is really much harder than that. Just like to say thank you to my wife, Angela, my boys, Jake and Jonathan, for being here, my brother Corey and Miles, several people that I haven't seen in a while that I've seen tonight. Good to see everyone. Again, thank you to the Hall of Fame committee for this honor, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Our second inductee for the night will be Miss Kim Swindle-Hale.
Kim Swindle-Hale is one of this year's Macon County Sports Hall of Fame inductees. Kim competed on the Macon County High School track and field team, the volleyball team, and the basketball team. She advanced to the state tournament in track and finished third in Tennessee in the high jump, all while not having a proper training facility in Lafayette. Kim says she showed up at track meets and just competed. She says she also loved competing in the long jump, shot put, and 4x400 relay teams as well. In volleyball, Kim was named the team's best defensive player her sophomore season. On the basketball court, Kim played all 4 years. She was named the most valuable player at the Nero White tournament twice and was named to the all-tournament team at the Red Boiling Springs Christmas tournament 2 times as well. These days, Dr. Kim Swindle-Hale calls Lafayette home. She's a board-certified behavior analyst for the Macon County Schools system. She also owns her own clinic and works with special needs children. She's married to Sam Hale. Kim is especially proud of her 3 children, Eli, Noah, and Olivia. Kim Swindle-Hale, a 2020 inductee in the Macon County Sports Hall of Fame.
And at this time, I will introduce Kim's father, Mr. David Swindle, to introduce her into the Hall of Fame.
I'd first like to say that I am so very thankful for the committee. You do a wonderful job. You put on a wonderful show. And I appreciate everything that has been done. It's very nice and very tactful and it's just very good to be here. I'm very honored to get to introduce my daughter. Not often does a parent get a free pass in bragging on his kids when everybody's got to stay and listen. Kimberly showed an aptitude for sports when she was very young. And there's something that I would like to tell about her. I started preaching when she was 7 years old. And we would go around different churches, and the way it worked in our churches, they would take up a collection. Each time that you come, usually a free will collection. And we were headed to Bowling Green to preach there one Sunday afternoon. And she says, "Where are we going to eat at?" I said, "Well, if the collection's not that good, McDonald's. If we get a really good collection, it's going to be Shoney's." So we got there to the church, and we had our service. And after service, they took up a collection, and Kim was in the back of the church house, and the treasurer handed me the money, and it was better than usual, and Kim realized that. So as soon as the treasurer handed me the money, she saw it, and I saw Kim, and I thought, what is she thinking? Here she came running to the altar of the church and said, "Shoney's." What I was thinking at the time was, how did she get here so fast? We traveled around a lot. We were in Hawaii, and then we moved to the Detroit, Michigan area. and that's when Kim was in the 7th grade, and she began to take an interest in especially basketball and track. And we found up there that they thought that we were hillbillies. They even asked Kim if her daddy wore shoes, since that we were from Tennessee and we had a southern accent. And she says, I think I'd like to high jump. And she had never tried it before. So we went, and her school had a track team, and there was another girl there, her age, from another school, and her mother. And her mother says, how long has Kim been doing this? I said, she's never done it before. And I says, what about your daughter? She says, well, she's one of the best in the state of Michigan. In the junior division, she ranks right up there with the very best of them. I says, well, that sounds very, very good. And I thought we were out of place there. Well, her daughter jumped, and Kim outjumped her probably 3 inches. And we realized then that she did have an ability there, that God had given her an ability of an athletic nature. We moved back to Macon County, and she came into her freshman year. The year before, they had a wonderful team, state team, in basketball. And I think all of them graduated that year, and there was not a starter left. Probably not a lot was expected. Kimberly and Alicia Cook started at the same time. They call them the Twin Towers. And they were quite a force. And I think it's fitting that they are being inducted tonight together. They were so unselfish in their play. They complemented each other so well. And when Kimberly got out of high school and she went to Western to begin her college career, there were a couple of girls from Portland that they played against every year. Now, it wasn't much of a rivalry because Macon County always beat them, and for 4 years running, they were district champions. And they started talking to Kimberly, and they says, you're nice. And Kim says, well, I try to be. They says, we thought you and Alicia Cook were the meanest 2 people that ever lived upon the face of the earth. That's the way they played ball. And one night, they all went up for a rebound. Kim came down with it, and Alicia got knocked out in the floor. They called the foul on the other team. And Kim said later, I did it. She decided to join the track team. It was completely new, the track team was here at the time. And she had tried many of the events, and high jump still seemed to suit her better than any of them. She started that year, didn't have a place to practice. She practiced 30 minutes that whole year. We drove her over to Scottsville one afternoon to practice high jump. She just went and jumped. And we made it to the regional finals, or she did, and that was when all the schools were together. All the private schools of Nashville were in that region. They took it very, very seriously. They had private coaches and all of that going on. And we went down there that day, and it was a very hot, sunny day. And each of those schools had their own private coaches, the jumpers did. And they were stretching, and they were getting ready and trying their best to prepare. And they were measuring it off. They had their measuring tapes and all of those things. Kimberly went out there and sat under the tree. She outjumped them all for 2 or 3 inches after they were completely finished. and had been out. Kim and Alicia and her group, that freshman year that no one probably had many high expectations for, they lost one game that season and were put out in the region from a very lucky Giles County team, I would think, and Gary Carter would probably agree with me. The next year they went to state. I'm so proud of Kim, but not just for her ability in sports and what she accomplished. I'm proud of her for what she is making of her life and what she is doing, as was mentioned in the tape. She has her clinic now. She's moving it, and we're trying to get it ready to receive those that would come in and helping children, mainly children with autism. I'm proud of her for the lady that she is. And all of these things are just extra. And many of you know that my wife and Kim's mother passed away in February. One of Kim's biggest fans. And I know that if she were here tonight, she would be glowing with pride because Kim was her dear daughter that she loved so much. I would like to introduce to you my loving, beautiful daughter, Kimberly Swindle-Hale.
Get it together. I'm not sure. Those of you that know me know I probably don't need a microphone. So if it gets too loud, just cut me off. When they asked me, or when I found out that I would have to have somebody present, I thought about the wonderful coaches I had through the years. I'll never be able to thank Coach Carter enough. When we moved back from Michigan, I moved back during part of the school year, and I really didn't have much of a chance to play my 8th grade year. I was on the team, but having moved in, things just really didn't go my way. Coach Carter came up to me after a game, and he said, "Just hang in there, I'll give you a chance." He didn't tell me that he would play me. He didn't tell me I would get any playing time. But he told me he would give me a chance. And that's what I needed. I needed somebody to just give me a chance. I thought about Coach Gaddis and Coach Cochran. As Dad said, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in just a minute, we didn't have a track program here. We had a track program, but we didn't have a track. Yeah, it's the truth. We'll talk about that more in just a minute, too. But they were dedicated to trying to help us be successful and recognizing in us maybe some skills that we could compete with. And I can never thank them enough for that. Coach Ford, I didn't get to play with Coach Ford many years because of my knee injury. Coach Enzel, out of Shelbyville at the time, I played on his AAU team, and we were able to go to the national championship game with him, and I can't thank him enough for giving me a chance. But when thinking about who to present, there were 2 people that were with me from ground zero. They believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. They pushed me, they encouraged me. Dad would fuss and Mom would tell him to stop. They were with me with all the knee surgeries, and as I've seen having my own children, there's nothing that brings me any greater joy aside from spiritually than seeing my kids excel. And I wanted him to be a part of tonight. First, I would like to thank the committee. I'm very honored and very humbled to be here tonight. Sports were so much more for me than getting on a court or running around the track or hitting a volleyball. As Dad mentioned, we moved around a lot growing up, and I don't think that anybody looks back on their 7th grade year and says, wow, that was a good one. You know, junior high's tough. We were living in Michigan, and when he says that I was called hillbilly, it wasn't like, ha-ha, hillbilly. I mean, it was some pretty intense teasing, and it's tough when you're in junior high and constantly reminded of your Southern accent or you're lesser than. But then basketball season came around. That Southern girl could take up some space on the ball court. And at that point, things changed for me. I brought value to the team, and I'm not saying that there were wonderful teammates on my team, but at that point, I felt like I was a part of something. And I was a part of something that I could contribute to, and that I was valued. And at that point, that Southern accent, them joking me about my dad wearing shoes or overalls, or if we had running water, and ironically, I think some of them really felt like that's how we lived here. Like, really. But it was so much more to me than that. And Alicia and I were talking about what we might say tonight, and there were just so many things that I wanted to say, but I don't know that I could accurately convey that into words. Alicia, on and off the court, is a forever friend. There's been years where we haven't seen each other, 5 years, and then we're back together, and it's just like we never were apart. In recent weeks, I've thought about what I might say. I thought about approaching it something like, what would you tell your former self? Well, I would probably tell my former self that when you're on the track team, your coach is going to make you run. I didn't like to run, but I was on the track team. And I would probably tell my former self, if you complain about it too much, your coach is going to call a meeting with your family, and then your family's going to call a meeting with you, which is going to not be fun, and then you're going to run. I might tell my former self, when that friend calls you and asks you to go to a Pleasant Shade to play on a 3-on-3 basketball tournament, when you've just gone to the state tournament for basketball and track, don't go. The only person that's going to benefit is your orthopedic surgeon. Don't go. But in recent weeks, months I should say, the thing that keeps coming back to me is a saying that we've heard many times as a ball player or a basketball, football. Leave it all on the court. Leave it all on the field. Leave it all on the track. I've heard it my whole life, but it wasn't until the days leading up to February 15th that it really hit home what that means in the greater scheme of things, in things bigger than sports. And we were with my mom in hospice. We were talking to the nurse. She had been diagnosed with cancer late last year. We had gotten a good prognosis. She had had surgery. It was staged as 1B. Everything's looking good. We're going to do some treatments, and she's going to get back to you. By February, we were in hospice. I was talking to the nurse, and she said, she's young, her heart's strong. You know, when I was little, I thought 65 years is a long time. And somebody that's 65 years old, ancient, like dinosaur times. In that moment, I knew how short 65 years truly were. just like a ball game that we play in, our time is finite. We might feel like we're in this ridiculous, endless drudgery, but we're really in a race against the clock. And if you've ever been in a close game, you know how fast that time goes. It's so easy to get focused on the 50% of the crowd that wants you to lose. And I never really thought about that as an athlete. When you walk into a gym, when you walk onto the field as a football player or on the court as a basketball player, or on the court as a volleyball or basketball player, 50% of the people there will give anything for you to lose. And what I found in life, it's very similar. There's people out there that want you to lose, and it's so easy to get caught up in that. It's so easy to get caught up in missing those shots, right? You go out on the court and you miss that first shot, or you shoot an air ball, and what do? You start pulling back. I don't want to do it again. I don't want to do it again. It's just like life. We do the same thing. We'll step out, and if we're not sure, we want to pull back. When the teammate that holds the team together is out for the season, and you just think we can't do it without them. We can't do it without them. Or you look around with self-doubt. It's like Dad said. So when we were in Michigan, we had a nice facility. The junior high that I went to had formerly been a high school, and we had rubberized tracks and high jump pits and just all kinds of stuff. And we came back, and Coach Gaddis and Coach Cochran were trying to pull our track program together, and we raced around the parking lot. This parking lot right here was our track. Didn't have a high jump pit, and I practiced shot put standing on the edge of the road out here. I think it's Gaddis Road. It's where we practice shot put. I think it was a blessing that I was so naive to think that I could actually compete. No one told me I couldn't. How beautiful is that? No one said, Kim, what are you thinking? You're never going to get to practice. Why in the world are you going to go to these track meets and even try? I just went, listened to my little cassette recorder, that kind of dates me. Listened to my little cassette recorder on the tree, and I just went and jumped. And it worked. And then I went to the next track meet, and I jumped again, and it worked. And before I knew it, I was at the Buster Relays. And I really was naive. I was like, oh, Buster Relays, this is nice. And then I jumped, and oh, you qualified to go on. I'm like, well, I didn't even know I was jumping to qualify to go on. I was just jumping. And somehow that year I ended up at the state. Jumping against girls that, like Dad said, from private schools that had Olympic coaches, but I was just jumping. And it was fun. What if we approach life like that? We just do it. Sometimes coming to terms with the fact that this life is finite is extremely uncomfortable. We don't like to think about that piece. But when we do think about that piece, we think about this precious time that we have. And Jamie and I were talking, and his wife, a minute ago about the class of 1996. It's impressive. We got physical therapists inducted in. We've got civil engineers. We've got doctors and lawyers and accountants. And when I look around this room, I see people that spent decades serving children. I see future architects or biologists, all ranges. But what I see more than that is purpose. And I see gifts and I see talents. And I just want to say this. When we leave today, you may not remember one sport I competed in. You may not remember one trophy or one award I ever received. You may not even remember my name. But one thing I do want you to remember, when your feet hit the floor in the morning, whether you're 10 years old, whether you're 95 years old, you're still in the game. And you have something to contribute far greater than yourself. You have purpose. Don't let the 50% of the crowd, and I don't know, this has just been on my heart. I don't know, maybe it's for my own kids. I don't know, maybe it's for me. But I think we forget that. Those things that you've been putting off, leave it all on the court. Love Jesus and leave it all on the court. To the committee, from the very depths of my heart, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be a part of the Hall of Fame. Thank you for tonight. Thank you for listening to this, whatever this is. To my coaches, you will never have any idea how you shaped my life. And to my parents, there are no words. I was brought up in a home that loved me. I was brought up in a home that taught me about Jesus and supported me in every way that they could. To my kids, I'm sorry I'm embarrassing you tonight. And to my husband, it'll be over soon. But thank you.
Our third inductee tonight will be Mr. Bill Speck.
Bill Speck is one of this year's Macon County Sports Hall of Fame inductees. Speck is not going in as a former athlete, but as a broadcaster. Speck moved from Livingston to Lafayette around 1960 to help run radio station Ween AM 1460. Through the years, Speck served as the voice of Macon County High, Red Bowling Springs High, and Macon County Junior High sporting events. In the old days, Speck tape-delayed Macon County football and basketball games, as well as RBS football and basketball games, and played them back on the radio at a later time. Eventually, Speck was able to broadcast games live, much to the delight of the fans who couldn't make it to the games in person. He broadcast Tiger football state playoff and bowl games. He hosted the Coach's Corner radio show and was a member of the local quarterback club for many years. Speck was responsible for getting the Jimmy Glover Award started and served on the Tony Woosley Scholarship Committee for many years. Speck has always been active in the community. He's met former governors of Tennessee when they would visit Macon County. You can spot him doing live reports at different locations through the years at a newsworthy event. He also loves baseball and softball. He helped coach Little League teams for more than 8 years and girls softball teams for 10 years. After a wonderful 41-year career in local broadcasting, Speck finally hung up the microphone for the last time in 2001. When he and his fellow co-owners sold Ween and WLCT to Ivan Davis. Today, Bill and his wife Liz live here in Lafayette. They have a son, Steve, and daughter, Stacy. The Specks are especially proud of their twin grandchildren, Trenton and Brooke. Bill Speck, a 2020 inductee in the Macon County Sports Hall of Fame.
And at this time, Mr. Speck's granddaughter, Brooke Collins, will introduce him into the Hall of Fame.
I don't have a lot prepared. I was told I was doing this just a few hours ago, so I had to jot a few things down. But I just wanted to stand up here. I'm honored to be able to give this award to my favorite person and the one who means the most to me. Ever since I was little and to this day, last week actually, anybody who would ask me who I was or what my name was, I didn't even tell them my name. I said, well, I'm Bill Speck's granddaughter, and they automatically knew. And I've never taken that for granted. I've always been honored to be his granddaughter. He, like the video said, he had owned and operated Wing radio station for 41 years. And he was the broadcaster for MCHS, and RBS Sports during all of those years. He might have hung up broadcasting, but he's still just as into sports as he was then. Anytime we go out to eat, we got to be back in time when the Lady Vols are playing. And anytime, if they're not on, he's watching old previous games of them. But like I said, I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. But I just wanted to get up here and be honored to introduce the most important man. And I've always said, if the world could have more Bill Specks in them, it would be as close to heaven on earth as it could be. And I'm just proud to stand up here today and be his granddaughter. And I'll always say I'm Bill Speck's granddaughter, and I'll never take that for granted. So.
And this will be short. I want to do more thanking Macon County than Macon County thanks of me. I came here on my birthday, July 31st, in 1960. The third time I entered the door of a radio station, I was manager. And I made more mistakes could be made, and some a couple of times. But Macon County stood with me, and we hope that we stood with them. And I had coined one phrase that I want to pass along, and I truly mean it. I've never seen a need arise in Macon County that Macon County didn't rise to meet that need. We were able to present the sports, and I think it's a very educational part of our life. For Macon County Red Boiling Springs Junior High, and we also did some coverage for our neighbors in Westmoreland, Hermitage Springs, and before they got a station, also in Hartsville. But primarily, our area was Macon County. And one of the highlights that I received during this time of doing the sports in Macon County, when our 1175th unit was sent to a war zone, I mailed them each week tapes of our ball games. And I got many, many thanks from them. And just here tonight, BJ invited me to their reunion coming up very shortly. But most of all, for these 61 years, I thank you, Macon County, for accepting me and my family. And we hope that down through the years, we gave you some news and satisfaction. And one of the things I'd like to pass along of how times have changed. In their early going, the probably most important part of our local newscast was a hospital report. The hospital called us each morning and gave us a list of the people, the patients, who had been sent to the hospital. And we gave all of those except, we had an exception if we knew it was a widow or somebody that lived alone. We left that one by. Another coin I phrased Many of you may remember Fanny Swindle, who worked there for many years. And I was working the board that morning, and she called and said she was a grandmother. So I came on the air and talked about Granny Fanny. And she carried that name until her death. But most of all, still today, to you and from me and my family, thank you and God bless you. And there's a reason for that. I give her that kiss on the nose. That's where she ran into a barbed wire fence and had a cut.
Thank you, Mr. Speck. Our fourth inductee tonight is Alicia Cook Thompson.
Alicia Cook Thompson is one of this year's Macon County Sports Hall of Fame inductees. Thompson played both volleyball and basketball in high school, but starred on the basketball court. A four-year starter for the Tigerettes, the 6-foot post player was a dominating presence for Coach Gary Carter's team. Thompson scored more than 1,000 points for her career. Her career high was 29 points in a game against White House. Some of her high school awards include being named the District 10 AA Most Valuable Player, and she was named to the All-Region team her sophomore and junior seasons, and was named the MVP of the Red Boiling Springs Christmas Tournament. Thompson also played on the Tigerettes' 1994 state tournament basketball team when she was a sophomore. She says her favorite memory playing basketball is when Coach Carter one time accidentally kicked off one of his shoes and it landed on the court during a game. He was assessed a technical foul. She says the girls gave him a hard time about that. Alicia had scholarship offers to play college basketball, but decided she wanted to focus on academics only after high school. These days, Alicia is employed by the Macon County Schools System and serves as a school nurse at Central Elementary School. She's married to Charlie and has 2 children who she is extremely proud of, Logan and Allie. Alicia Cook Thompson, a 2020 inductee in the Macon County Sports Hall of Fame.
And at this time, Alicia's coach, Coach Gary Carter, will introduce her into the Hall of Fame.
Does anything work? Kinda work. I guess I'll never live that one down. But I'm just glad. I'm thankful to be here. You know, number one tonight, because it's been a real trying year and a half, and just to be alive. And I know some of you with the COVID situation. I know some of you had friends and family that you've lost loved ones, and you know, and some of us sitting around here now is the age that was kind of concerned herself, you know, to escape that. So, but just my thoughts and prayers goes out to all those people that do have friends or did have friends and family or whatever that lost a loved one during that time. And first, I didn't take it very serious. I'll just get off on this. My wife stayed on me all the time about wearing masks, and you just run around all over everywhere and do whatever you want to do. And I never took it serious till one day I come in and she was getting on me and said, "You just go and do and come and this and that," and said, "You're going to go out and get COVID and give it to me, and you're going to live and I'm going to die." You know, and so that really struck old Coach Carter. You know, it hit hard. And so then I tried to do a lot better in that situation. So, you know, after all in all, my granddaughter went back to school. She went tested, got tested for antibodies. She had antibodies. My son had antibodies. His wife had antibodies. His sister had antibodies. And I told my wife, I said, well, if they've got them, because we just all together all the time, I said, I've got antibodies. So I went and got me an antibody test, and I had long-term antibodies, and so I took, had the COVID and didn't know it. We all had it, didn't know it. And so I took me 2 shots, and I've done all I can do about COVID, and I'm, either home free. But I did tell somebody, I said, I sure hate to die with that little virus, because, that death is not good. You go to the hospital, bye, I love you, and you lay there on your stomach or whatever till you either die or get better. And so I don't want to do that. I told somebody I'd rather go out a little more dramatic. I want my death to be a lot, or get run over a train, as to die with COVID. Seriously. So, but now I want to congratulate all 5 of the inductees here. But it's a real honor. I hope I can get through this. I'm an old man now, but boy, I'm weak when I get up and start talking. So I still cry. You'll see an old man probably cry before this is over. But it's an honor for all 5 of you. But it's a special honor for me to think I've got not only 1, not only 2, but 3 players getting inducted for the Hall of Fame that played for me. And these 3 players right here was a big part of Macon County basketball tradition. These 3 players have got over Doucette. She come along at a different time than they did, but she's got over 100 wins plus. They got over 100 wins plus. And, that's a tradition, and that's the reason things has kept going. But you can see why we won. I always tell people, you can't win without good players. It's just simple as that. You can't win without good players. Everybody can think he's a real coach. Just try to coach you somebody that's not an athlete. Kim, she's talking about herself. Wow. I mean, she could jump because she was just an athlete. She could play because she was an athlete. And she could play because she was an athlete. But the thing that they got such a strong mentality. They're so strong. And you see where they are today. And that's the real reason. But players make coaches, all right? Now, I go to Alicia. When she first got my attention, was at Westside. And we'd go out there and play them in the 7th grade. We played her when she was in 7th grade. We'd go out and take a high school team out. I'd just take my freshmen out. And so we'd play them 7th grade. And I seen Alicia's pretty good size, whatever. And then all of a sudden, 8th grade, she had grown, she got better. And I really didn't want to go out there because I really thought I was going to get beat by a bunch of her team in Westside with my freshmen. So, but we barely got by. We actually beat them, but right then I knew that she was going to be a player, just players that come from Westside. We had to get a lot of people from Westside back then. It was kind of like the school I went to, I think, back years ago in Enon. We had a lot of, we called it, some people call it PE. We called it recess and PE or whatever you want to call it. But we had a lot of free time, and they had some free time at Westside and didn't have no do except play basketball. And that's the reason you guys stayed in the gym all the time. That's the reason it was pretty good. But former players like Sis Newberry, Dana Leith, as we say, Alicia, Shanny McCormick, Nancy Cawthorn, the Compton girls, but that's why they ended up being what they are, because mostly just the grit, the heart they had. But I'm going to talk about Alicia now. First of all, she had some great parents. I mean, they were quality, and you got the right gene, you got the right DNA, and you got the right people pushing you, then you end up turning out pretty good. I always told kids at school, you're just half raised. You have to be at least half raised, but if you go off on the deep end, you'll always circle back to the good side if you had some good raising. So, she come in as a freshman, and preacher, I didn't know I was going to have to follow a preacher. I thought it'd be Coach Fitz, you know. I mean, he was pretty long-winded all the time, and then I can't match with a preacher, you know what I'm saying? So I come in, but there's no bigger honor than what they did here. Daddy introducing daughter, granddaughter, with granddaddy. That's all I do now is run grandkids, and I love it. But he talked about that freshman year, and no, we had a real good team. We lost a bunch of people. These two come along. I didn't have a post player one. Had one good guard and two girls that never played before, so we had a 3-guard combination here, and so Alicia, I knew she could score. Kim was a defensive specialist. She rebounded. And they started on that basketball team as freshmen, and we won 25 ball games. And all they had to do, their job was rebound, play defense, make layups, and set some screens and picks. So, but they're a big part of that team. Those two big girls were. They've won over. I done been over that. They won over 100 ball games. Those two did. Alicia started every game. Except 6 ball games. She broke her hand, and she was talking about going to the state tournament the year before. We went to the state tournament, got beat, had every starter coming back. She goes off in the summer and plays that 3-on-3 game. She was talking about going to orthopedic, blows the ACL half out. We go in, that's one starter. We get in 4 or 5 ball games in the season, had a guard go down with the ACL, had a backup post player to go down with the ACL. And you think, and you know, offense started out with 5, it went from 5 to 4 to 3, and then Alicia got 6 ball games in the season layoff. She broke her hand. Now I'm down to 2 players. And this team would have been probably the best team that I'd ever coached, ever had. We played Hickman County, just to let you know how it was. I had my daughter and Mitzi Blankenship with all these sitting watching. We played Hickman County at our home gym. Coach Claver remember this, and we got beat by just a point or two, and somebody stepped across the line and got us beat. With 2 starters, we almost won that ball game. They go to the state tournament. They win the state tournament, and we almost beat them with 2 players. So it just kind of fell out from under us. And that's just the way Kim said, that's the way life is, though. You know, you got to be expecting everything. So anytime. Some of the things that I remember, that's enough about that. But Alicia, I don't guess nobody would do what I did back then. Probably a lot of parents wouldn't let you. But we'd practice on snow days like they do now. Well, I found out real quick where Alicia Cook lived, out all the way out almost the west side. Parents worked, couldn't bring her to practice. Well, it's kind of like, I had to go get Alicia. It'd take me an hour, sometimes 2, to get all 10 players there. I'd get me 10. You know, if you was beyond 10, you could have the day off. So, but I had to have 10 to practice. But she was my number 1 player. I went and got her. And they don't tell how many snow days I went and got her and brought in enough people to play. I don't know how many coaches would do that today. But I remember that, and I hope she does. You know, we went out of our way, but she'd be my number 1. Like I said, number 1 player. She had to be there. And Alicia was kind of like, I got the comment about that. Alicia was kind of like a basketball team, and all 3 of them were. But I'm talking about Alicia, but she was kind of like to a basketball team, kind of like a charge card is to, I guess I could say everybody, but I am going to say a woman. You know, you don't want to go shopping without one. Well, I sure didn't want to go to a basketball game without Alicia Cook, you know. So I wasn't going to go. As it kept going, a few years later, I like to tell this and that. I was helping Coach Bean, and I was just helping him. I'd give him a team, and I was helping him, and he had little Compton girl from out around Westside, the best player he had. And she was late for the bus. And that's another thing. Like, we drove the bus, we rode the bus, and we did everything. I mean, coaching would be a dream like now. Like, hey, Mama, get you a ride and meet me at the game, you know. So I don't know what he'd be like if I was coaching that. But anyway, Coach Bean was sitting there on the bus, and this little girl, she was a few minutes late, and he said, I'm getting ready to leave her. I said, what do you think? I said, Coach, what I think is if she don't go, I don't go. I'm not going without her. So we waited. We waited for her. You don't leave your best player. You don't leave your best player at home. You know, she come rolling in there, and that made everything pretty good. So next, probably the funniest or the, I guess the most serious I was a little bit teed too. Alicia, we went to camp one year, and we had two new players playing on the team. They'd never started. Alicia started just 4 years in a row. She'd started. She had started 4 years in a row. Now I got two players that come in and fill up 2 spots, and we go to camp. And this camp game started, and it was about like this, and you know, jump the ball, and here they go. And they go down there and they jack it up about 15 to 18 feet, and the other team gets the ball, and they go running down through there, and they shoot it. And then we'd go back down, and one of those 2 would shoot it. And then we'd go back down, and we went about 4 or 5 trips. It seemed about like 20 to me. You know, and all this time, you know what I was saying? I'd see Alicia, she'd get to the free throw line or the three-point line on this end, and she'd get to the three-point line or free throw line on that end, and she'd go back, and she'd get to the free throw line, and so I thought, time out. You know, so I walked up, these girls had a timeout, and I said, let me tell you something, girls. You girls come down here to play with Alicia Cook. She didn't come down here to play with y'all. You better slow this thing down, and you better let her touch the ball. She could score. So and they did. And Alicia could score better than any post girl I ever had. For just actually score. She could score. Let me see. And the next one, the next statement I'd like to say is we'd be in a game, and Alicia's getting foul trouble. She'd be sitting over there beside of me, and you know, games start getting close, and they'd start catching up with us, and all of a sudden, you know, and I'd get a little bit irritated, and I'd look around at Alicia. I said, Alicia, I'm a lot better coach with you out on the floor than you are sitting here with me, okay? And so that's the reason you appreciate good players. Alicia could have played at the next level, like she said, but she's chose another route, and that's where she is today. Just comments I'd like to make. One of the best post players ever played at Macon County High School. Had all the moves, all the shots, and to be a real post player. She could finish, she could score. Probably better than any post player I've had. Dana could score, but she was a post, wing, guard, point, whatever. She could do it all. But Alicia was that true post. She made every player play better that played with her, because Alicia could score, one person couldn't guard her, so she had to have help. No one person could play her. She made about 75%. Her shooting percentage was about 75% down low, and shot the free throws really well. She always had a guard. She always had help side, and Kim would get all the rebounds and all the missed shots that come off on the back side. And when Kim went out, Alicia made some weak post girls look pretty good, you know. So, but I always referred to Alicia as my BWG down low. All right, she was my big white girl down low. All right, she was my big white girl down low, and she could play. But you know something? That post game, the art of the post game, is just about gone in basketball. And I've not seen a post player in many years that even come to close to the caliber of Alicia Cook Thompson. Sorry. She got a daughter. I told her I was going to mention her. She's also got a daughter. And she could be a very good player. Got to coach her a little bit in junior high. She just decided to work hard, and she don't know how good she could be. And now it's with great honor, a great pleasure to present to Macon County Sports Hall of Fame, Alicia Cook Thompson.
Well, I don't have a fancy speech or anything. I'm hoarse. Y'all bear with me. Being a nurse, having to wear a mask all day kind of gets to you. First off, I would like to express my appreciation for even being considered, much less receiving this induction into our county's Hall of Fame. I'm very humbled and thankful. I would like to thank our school system and its leaders for allowing me to be part of a sport that I've always been passionate and even to this day love. I don't feel worthy of this honor, but I do accept it with great honor and humble mention. I first off want to thank my parents who have traveled many, many miles They have washed uniforms at night. I've watched them work. Be sure I had everything I needed the next day. They were ready for games. They were always there. Never missed a game that I recall. From the late nights to the early mornings, thank you. Mom always said that one of my first words was ball. Wasn't mama, wasn't daddy, it was ball. I loved ball. Eat, drink, sleep, basketball. That was my passion. I started as a 5th grader at Westside Elementary. Coach Andy Scruggs gave me a chance to play. And from that day forward, it's always been what I wanted to do. I'm thankful for him believing in me and giving me a chance. Now to go into high school. There were days we would have practice at Westside, and I didn't have a way to get to high school. Mom and Daddy were both at work. Coach Carter would drive out to Westside and pick me up and take me to practice. And he will never know what that means to me. And when he was talking about running a bus route to pick us up on snow days, it was in an old yellow Dodge he drove, that we would be cram-packed in the cab of that truck. Today, we probably went to jail. But he'd say shift, we shift gears. Whoever was sitting over there, meet him at the end of my driveway with bread sacks on my shoes because he didn't want his shoes wet. And for that, I am so thankful. That is a coach that believes in his players. That is a coach that goes above and beyond what he expects. During the ice storm, I had no electricity for 2 weeks. So I was at the beck and call of whoever could take me in, get us to practice. And a lot of them are not here tonight, but I want to thank them. I want to thank my partner in crime, Swindle-Hale. She was always the calm to my storm. I was the hot-tempered one. She was the mild one. We had a high-low game that was pretty much unstoppable if we were both healthy. We played well together on and off the court. And to Kim, I'm thankful. I would not be here tonight without my teammates. They never complained when Coach Carter would say, give Cook the ball, give Cook the ball, feed Cook the ball. They never complained. They always gave me the ball. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Sometimes, like he said, I'll be in foul trouble, sit next to him and him telling me, you look better out there than you do sitting next to me. There's one person I'd like to recognize also. Well, first off, I want to say thank you to my brother. He never complained. He was drug across the county, across the state of Tennessee, and he never complained. He was always there. I know it was hard on him, so I'll say thank you. One lady I'd like to mention is Kathy White. She gave me my first job. She worked around my schedule, let me work when I could, and then let me off when I couldn't. She never missed a game. She was there with either balloons or flowers. And when Coach Brock told me I'd been nominated, Kathy was one of the first people I thought I wanted her to be here. Of course, Kathy's been gone, and I would love to thank her for allowing me to work there, teaching me work ethic, and never missing a ball game. I just want to tell you how honored and humbled I am to even be recognized, even to be inducted into this. When Coach Brock came to me and told me I'd been nominated, I was thrilled. I couldn't tell you just how thrilled I was, that whether I made it or not, it didn't matter, just to be nominated. Coach Carter, thank you for believing in me. Thank you for giving me a chance. With him, it was work hard or go home. You played ball or you went home. You either won or you lost. That's just the way it was with him. And I want to thank him so much for giving me the opportunity, coaching me, not only in basketball, but the work hard ethic that he taught me. And I hope I pass that down to my children. To my husband, thank you. He traveled many miles watching me play when I was in high school. To my kids, I love you. To my parents, thank you. To my teammates, thank you. And I'm honored to be here with a lot of my classmates that I went to school with. And I'm proud of each and every one of you. Thank you.
Our fifth and final inductee for tonight is Dana Leith Willis.
Dana Leith Willis is one of this year's Macon County Sports Hall of Fame inductees. Dana played basketball and volleyball at Macon County High School. In volleyball, she was named to the District 9AA All-Tournament team in both her junior and senior seasons. She was also named All-Mid-State Honorable Mention. In basketball, Dana made the District 10AA All-Tournament team all 4 years of high school. She made the Region 5AA All-Tournament team her sophomore, junior, and senior seasons. During her senior year, Willis was named the Red Boiling Springs Christmas Tournament Most Valuable Player, as well as the MVP of the Vol State Tournament and named All-Vol State Conference MVP. Dana was on the second Macon County girls basketball team to compete at the state tournament. Dana was the class of '92 salutatorian. After high school graduation, Willis played basketball for Cumberland University in Lebanon. She earned academic All-American honors all 4 years and won the prestigious Lindsey Donnell Award as a senior. Dana is the first nursing athlete to graduate from Cumberland. These days, Dana calls Lafayette home. She works for Middle Tennessee Anesthesia Providers as a certified registered nurse anesthetist. She's married to Roger and has 3 sons who she adores, Kyle, Jacob, and Gage. Dana Leith Willis, a 2020 inductee in the Macon County Sports Hall of Fame.
At this time, Dana will be introduced in the Macon County Sports Hall of Fame by her coach at Cumberland, Mitch Walters.
Kim, you broke my heart, darling. I watched Kim play all through high school in Alicia and spent a lot of time trying to recruit Kim, but it all worked out for the best. I'd like to congratulate all the inductees this evening. Big honor for you folks. I would also like to congratulate the last year's state championship team. And that started with you girls. You know, for you girls to compete, I got down here in 1986, and Macon County has competed in the Upper Cumberland in women's basketball, girls basketball, that whole time, and that's not an easy task. And but again, a lot of what happened this year with those girls was, your hard work through the years, girls. I'd like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Leith for trusting myself and Cumberland University to send Dana to us to play. I was blessed. You don't know how much. We had 3 pretty good ones down there from Macon County at that time: Laura Jane Roberts, Andrea Butler, and Dana. And couldn't get Laura Jane to play college basketball. Wish she would have, but she put a few dents in the floor with the volleyball down there for us. But you knew when you got a player that played for Gary Carter, you were getting a fundamentally sound, hard-nosed young lady that knew how to win. Dana was my kind of player, as a lot of the Macon County girls were. She'd spit in your eye and punch you while you're wiping it out. My kind of girl. And then she'd make a layup after she punched you, so it was a good thing. But the kids from up here, they were all fundamentally sound. They had high basketball IQs, and they fit in very well at Cumberland as student athletes. And we always tried to get across to all our girls that played for us down there, use your athletic ability as a means to an end. Use your athletic ability as a means to an end. And Dana has done that very well in her lifetime with what she's accomplished in her career. As you heard in the introduction, Dana was the first student athlete to graduate from the nursing program at Cumberland University. And not easy being a student athlete. And Dana and I had to go out in the loading dock a couple times before practice started, and we had to talk her off the ledge, but we got through it. And Mrs. Leith, no disrespect for you, but 10th grade biology at Macon County High School is a little different than farming ecology in upper level nursing class. And I think Dana was battling farming ecology, and I think it was the only time she ever got a C in her academic career. And I just looked at her, Dana, C's get degrees, darling. And she did well with it. But Dana was just, I referred to a lot of the kids, we had a lot of kids from Upper Cumberland that played for us. Salina kids, Pickett, Livingston, Jamestown, so on and so forth. Just salt of the earth, good folks. And that was Dana, and that started at home with her parents. She was one of the hardest workers I ever coached. She was easy to coach. Gary taught her how to play the game, so it was just kind of a matter of directing her. She's very easy to coach, but her hard work. Mr. Leith and Mrs. Leith in the fall, in September and October, would get Dana to get with Coach Hunt, Woody Hunt, our baseball coach, and Woody being an old sharecropper and tobacco farmer, Mr. Leith would hire 10 or 12 of our baseball players to work in the tobacco fields. Mr. Leith, I don't think you're going to get any of them pretty boy prima donnas we got down there now to work in the tobacco patch for you anymore. But different times, different days. But I was in the office on Monday morning, and 3 of the guys came in that came up to help cut tobacco. And they said, Coach, Dana and Lisa outworked all of us. And just, that goes back to, her upbringing, nothing beneath her. She was a great teammate. She was always there for her teammates. And I was blessed to have gotten to coach Dana. she made me a lot better coach than what I was. And you heard Gary say, you know, Alicia's such a strong post player, and I remember Kim just on the backside, just snatching rebound after rebound. But Dana kind of could play anywhere. And due to my inability to recruit a point guard while Dana was there, she had to play the point at times. And she'd come by me, and I could hear her under her breath probably cussing me, but I just kind of turned my back to her. Dana, you got to get the first pass into the offense. But she was very talented, and we were blessed to have her. And your 2021 honoree, Dana Leith Willis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm really thankful to be here. Actually, glad to be here because I really didn't think I was going to be able to be here. I found out sort of through the grapevine, through BJ, that the induction was this weekend, and I started a new job last week in Illinois. So I'm like, how in the world do I tell these new people that I'm going to work for in Illinois that I can't be there on Monday morning because I'm getting inducted into the Hall of Fame? So, but it worked out. I was able to be here, and I'm truly glad. I'm honored to be included in this group of people. I've been sort of thinking about what I would say being up alone in Illinois over the past week, and so I've sort of had this run of thoughts and jotted it down on my notebook paper. So if I have to sort of stand back, I forgot my glasses. So bear with me. I thought about what I was going to say and how I would do it, and I figured that I'd just do a timeline of when I started and then sort of thank the people along the way that helped me. When I started, things have changed a lot since then. You know, I started in 1984, and for some of y'all, that's not that long ago. But for others, it is. And there was no junior pro or summer league. You know, I had a slab of concrete out there and in the backyard, and you know, when we got up a little bit older, Daddy poured another slab to match it, so we had a twice as big slab, and that's where I played ball. We played in the backyard. And so I started in 5th grade and really didn't care about basketball. Jackie Kelly was my coach, who ended up at Westmoreland. And then in 6th grade, I sort of got a little bit more interested in it, and that's when Andy Scruggs came to coach. And Andy was actually not only my coach, but he was my teacher, and his dad and my grandfather are also brothers, so he was a distant cousin too. So it was an honor to have him. He did crazy stuff with us. We would do duck walk and bear crawl and all these crazy exercises to warm up. And I don't know if I attribute to not getting hurt to all those crazy things that he did to us to help us stretch out, but I was fortunate to not get hurt. He really encouraged not only basketball, but he reinforced the importance of grades. You know, grades were important. And funny story, he was my teacher, and I was a very picky eater like my youngest son. And so I took my lunch to school every day, and on the way to school, which my bus driver couldn't hear, but somebody opened the back door of the bus and threw my lunch and my books out the back door. And I was sitting in class thinking, how in the world am I going to tell Mr. Scruggs that my books and my lunch are on the side of the road, not to mention my parents? So I'm sitting there, and he walks in and he says, Dana, I need to talk to you for a minute. And so I went up there, and I was just running through my head, what am I going to say, what am I going to say? And he pulled out my books and my lunch and set it up there. And he said, why in the world did I find your lunch and your books on the side of the road? And so I explained it to him. So, you know, I don't think he ever got anybody in trouble. He just always watched out for me. And when I got to 8th grade, you know, it was me, and I was pretty much one of the only ones at Westside that really played, but there wasn't a whole lot of players on the high school team, and Coach Carter needed players to come play against his girls, so Andy actually volunteered to drive me to practice. So as 8th graders, me and Andrea and Laura Jane, we all went and played against the high school team. And that was one of the big phrases that Coach Carter would use is they would try to inbound the ball, and, you know, we're a whole lot taller than what they were used to, so it was, those days are over. That was a big, any time that they would inbound the ball and it would get tipped, that would be what he said. But we were able to play ball, so I think Andy, you know, after I got to high school, he watched me as a fan, went to all the games, and then he was my boss at the swimming pool till I was a sophomore in college. And so Andy, you know, really influenced me and was there for me a lot. And I know that his family's had a hard time this past year with the death of his son, and I just would like to say how much him and Donna have made an influence in my life. So then I went to high school, okay? Like I said, you know, I was a West Sider. Looking back at annuals and sort of trying to gather information, there was only 13 people from my 8th grade class that actually graduated with my graduating class. So when you talk about West Side and not really realizing what a big transition that is when you're 14 years old, that's a big deal. So one person that had a huge impact on me was Miss Cindy Ford. I've known Miss Cindy a long time. That concrete slab that Daddy added onto, well, her name was on the original slab because my parents bought their farm back in 1977. So I can still remember being little and Cindy carrying me on her hip. But Cindy, she introduced me and a whole lot of other freshmen to volleyball. Had never played volleyball, didn't know how to play volleyball, didn't know anything about it. But she actually taught us the game and taught us the fundamentals, and she actually took my freshman team to the sub-state. We went to the sub-state and had 2 years at home as sub-state. Couldn't get past the University School in Nashville, but you know, that's a big deal, you know, taking players that had never played and didn't know anything about it. So I was really glad to see that Miss Ford got the Teacher of the Year this year. She's really meant a lot to me. Now on to basketball. Well, B team, Coach Claiborne, wherever he's at, he was our B team coach. He was also our AAU coach because we couldn't play individual AAU, we played as a team. So Coach Claiborne is, he's the easiest going, nicest, happiest all the time person. And I really think a lot of him and Winona. He was really good to me, and Winona probably wouldn't remember this, but when I found out that I had lost valedictorian, which I was just devastated, and she could tell I was upset, and she pulled me into her room, and she's like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "Well, you know, I didn't win," and she's like, "Your parents are going to be so proud of you for getting salutatorian." I'm like, "Yeah, but, you know, valedictorian gets a full ride, and Daddy would have really been happy if I'd have got my school paid for with a full ride of education." So, but Winona was there. She really meant a lot to me then. They both really influenced me, and I'm proud to call them friends now that we're grown up. And I've seen Coach Claiborne at his worst, and I'm glad he's doing well. And when I was at work at Vanderbilt, and Winona, she texted me or paged me, I can't remember, but she let me know that he was down there getting his transplant. I went down there and sat with him until he was done, and I'm like, dadgummit, this is taking so long. What the world's going on? So I went up there, and sure enough, he was done and already up in his room. And I'm like, why didn't y'all let us know? So we went up there and saw him, and he looked so good, and I'm just so happy that he's doing well. And just want him to know I love him, and appreciate Winona. Appreciate all my team and coaches. You know, Coach Carter and I, we butted heads a lot. I'm strong-willed, and I don't know who yelled at me most, Coach Carter or my daddy. It was a tough decision there, but it was. I appreciate all of them. I appreciate my players that I played with. You know, I don't see them a whole lot. There's one that I see, and that I really is probably a lifelong friend, and that's Heather Gilmore. She and my 12-year-old share books. So I appreciate her. I appreciate everything, and everything that Coach Carter, everything that you did for me. I appreciate it. But when you think of high school, you know, it's not all about sports. It's about getting an education and preparing to be an adult. And, you know, there was a issue when I was a senior of grades and, you know, changing grades and grades being whatever. And, you know, there were some teachers that really stuck by me. You know, this little girl from West Side that didn't know anybody when she went up there. And, you know, they didn't have to stand by me because, shoot, there's just 13 of us in that class that were from there. And so some of these people have already passed away, but I feel like I need to tell them thank you. You know, Mr. J.Y. Carter, he stood by me, and Miss Fitz stood by me, and Miss Peggy Stevens and Mike Prock stood by me, and I appreciate that. I appreciate them standing up for me. And Miss Georgina Bowles, I appreciate her standing up for me. And, you know, people need to consider when you're getting school board members, because that's an important job. And Mr. Melvin Pettigo, he stood up for me, and Mr. Arv Austin stood up for me, and Mr. Jimmy Whaley. Thank a lot of Jimmy, and he was good to me. But we did well. I think we were Coach Carter's first team that won 30 games. I think we broke the 30-game mark. And I love ball. Like he said, there wasn't a whole lot else to do. Wasn't no video games. We had an Atari, and half the time the controller didn't work. So after going and looking at different colleges, I decided to go to Cumberland. Daddy worked in Lebanon. I could put my dirty clothes in the car. Daddy'd pick them up, and then they'd be clean the next day. So I decided I wanted to be a nurse, and, you know, that's a story in itself. But when I was a junior in high school, Coach Carter remembers this, I was slow. I tried to gain weight. I was drinking milkshakes with raw eggs in them, trying to put on some weight. And he told me, he said, I wish you hadn't gained that weight. He said, because you're slow. I was slow. And didn't really know what it was, but that Wednesday night game was the big game. And I don't know if that's the big game anymore, but back then, the Wednesday night game, if you didn't win the Wednesday night game, you were done. So we didn't win the Wednesday night game, so we were done. But they were having a blood drive on Friday. So I went out to the big van, and and they would prick your finger, and if your drip sank, you'd give blood and get a free T-shirt. Well, my drip didn't sink, so they sent me out to the big van, and I was out there, and they drew my blood, and they said, your blood count's low. You need to go to the doctor and have it checked out. well, I didn't think that much about it, so went home and told Mom. We went to the doctor. Long story short is my blood volume was half of what it should be. And they didn't realize that, they didn't realize how I was, they couldn't understand how I was still playing ball, because if it had been an instantaneous thing, they would have given me a blood transfusion. So I couldn't drive, couldn't even dance and interact. They wouldn't let me do nothing until my blood counts got back up. But that next year I had so much energy, I didn't really know what to do. But the nurses were so kind to me during all that getting blood drawn, and I thought I had leukemia. I just knew that's what it was. And so when I went to the hematologist and everything turned out okay, I decided that that's sort of why I wanted to be a nurse. If I could help somebody, then like they helped me, then that would give meaning to things. So Coach Walter's like, oh, I've got a player that's in nursing school that's right ahead of you, and we can do this. And I'm like, okay, Coach, but I want to play down low. I said, I don't want to play guard. And he's like, okay, you can do that. So first year was great. I got to play down there, and I got to throw elbows and sit a lot on the bench for fouling, all that good stuff. But then my sophomore year, we had one get injured, and then he had recruited a girl to be a point, but it was messing up her shooting game, so he called me in the office. And Coach Walters called me Spider. I don't know why, but that was my name. So he said, Spider, we've got to have a talk. He said, you're going to have to play point guard. And I said, but Coach, you told me I wouldn't have to. He said, I'm paying you to do a job, and you'll do the job that I want you to. And I said, yes, sir, because he was. But the thing about Coach is that, see, he required all his players to live in the dorm. And we all lived on the same floor, and we all shared a shower at the end of the hall. And there was a payphone. And anyway, he watched over us. He knew what our boyfriends drove and if they were in the parking lot late. And we had to answer to him. And he just made sure that we were taken care of. We worked hard. In the mornings, we'd go practice, and we'd lift weights and we'd run, and you pray that the football team wasn't out there doing anything, because if they were, you would run twice as hard, because he just wanted to show what he could make his girls do. When you go to college, you have to become an adult very quickly. You don't have mama and daddy there making you get up and go to class, and you don't have them there making you hang out with the right people or the wrong people, or not do or do. And, I appreciate the people that God put in my life that have helped me when I didn't even know I needed it. The first 2 years at school were easy because I had all the prerequisite stuff. But when I started nursing classes, it was a foreign language. Who knew that a gallbladder was a cholecystectomy? Who knew that? Why do they call stuff that? I don't know, but, many times Coach Walters would stand up for me when the director of nursing told me I had to choose. You can either do sports or nursing. He went with me to talk to them, and we worked out schedules, and he stood by me, and I appreciate that. I was resident assistant. I needed a private room so I could stay up late and study, so I was the RA. Just so happens the first time they make RAs sit in the lobby and take up IDs from visiting boyfriends was the year I'm RA. So all the study time I need, I'm sitting down there taking up IDs. And he's like, why are you so wore out? And why are you tired? I'm like, I'm having to sit in the freaking lobby taking up these IDs of these boys come to see their girlfriends. So he went to the director of housing and took care of that for me. So I didn't have to sit down there in the lobby anymore, and I didn't even have to give up my private room. So I asked Coach Walters to introduce me tonight so I could thank him and let him know what he means to me. He helped me pay for school. He watched out for my best interest when I didn't know that he was. He'd always talk to boys. He'd say they'd be sniffing around, and he'd put them in their place. He watched out for me in situations that a young adult didn't even know how to manage, and he was there as a shoulder to cry on when I didn't want to call Mom and tell her that I'd made a C, or when I was waiting to see if I made a C so I could go on to the next semester. You know, Mama didn't know all that, but Coach did, and it's Coach Walters. He took the opportunity to have a positive impact on me, and because of his acts of kindness, he made a lifelong impression on me, and I really appreciate that. I have to thank my parents. If you ever went to a game, you always heard, "Shoot the ball, Dana." That was what my dad said 1,000 times. I bet if you watched old tape, even if you couldn't see it, you could hear my daddy, "Shoot the ball, Dana." My biggest critic, and a lot of times I didn't please him, but him and Mama were always my biggest fans. I know that they were proud of me, and they've always encouraged me and supported me and given me every opportunity to succeed. I really won the lottery when it came to parents. I'm most thankful that they took me to church. Being prepared to meet God at the end of this journey is the most important thing. And I thank them, and I love them for that. I also want to thank my husband and my kids. They really helped me get things together this week. Really didn't know what to get together, but they took care of all that while I was up in Illinois, and I'm proud of them. They're good boys, and they work hard, and I love them very much. And most of all, I have to thank God. You know, God has poured out many blessings on me. He's always watched over me and cared for me, and I just want to say thank you to him, and I want to say again just how honored that I am to be included in this group. I don't really know that I deserve it. That man right there, he's done more for sports than I've ever dreamed of it, and I appreciate him. I always, you know, he would announce our ball games, and you'd hear him, and I really, really appreciate him. Also, here's a page that got out of order. Sorry. I want to say also to Coach Gaddis, forgot Coach Gaddis. Thanks to him, he was the one that gave me the B that caused me to get salutatorian, but I still love him anyway. And Coach Fitz, I want to thank you. You know, you give me a workout when you wasn't supposed to. And me and Jamie lifted weights together on the sly. And I appreciate you helping me out. Consider your family very highly, and I appreciate you. And, you know, I just hope that one day that I can do some kind act that would have an influence on people as much as these people have had an influence on me. And I'm very honored to be a part of this group, and I thank you so much.
Folks, let's give the 20th annual induction class in the Macon County Sports Hall of Fame another round of applause. I've enjoyed hearing the stories of the ones that introduced them in to the Hall of Fame and the stories from the inductees. It's always good to hear them give thanks to their former teachers and coaches and the people that influenced their lives greatly during their journeys. This concludes our Hall of Fame Sports Induction Banquet. I know the ladies have already left, but I want us to give a round of applause to Linda's Cakes and Catering for the good meal that we had tonight. If you'll look in the back of your program, there is nomination for the Macon County Sports Hall of Fame. This says 2021. Of course, that would be actually for 2022. But if you know of someone that meets the criteria that is listed here on this page and you want to nominate them for induction into the Sports Hall of Fame, please fill this out. You can send it either to Jackie Eller at his address or myself at the Board of Education. We need good nominees and people to consider to be inducted into this Sports Hall of Fame. So I appreciate everyone coming out tonight to honor these inductees, and feel free to stay around and talk with them after the ceremony. But everyone be safe, and we hope to see you again next year. Thank you.